rehydrating with the electrolytes there.
What is that?
It's a good protein drink is what that is. Our strength coach, Timmy Pillow, always makes me one up with the guys.
I hope that it tastes better than it looks.
Yes, it does.
Okay, good news.
Yeah.
So this is Coach John Speraw, which most of you probably already know. Coach, congratulations. 6 sets up, 6 sets down. Your thoughts on your team's progression through 2 matches as you prepare for a VNL opponent in Cuba tomorrow?
I think our progression really is just getting used to the gym, getting back in a competitive mode after having a month of training and a couple weeks off. In terms of how we've been challenged so far, I don't know that we've been tested so far other than to just make sure that we're in a good competitive mindset. And I think we have. I think we haven't really let down. We've been pretty sharp, passed the ball really well tonight. So I feel like we've gotten what we needed to out of the first couple matches.
Only 4 errors from your team so far. Is that one of those indications for you that you guys are sharp and that you're going through and staying present in the process 1 point at a time?
Attack errors through 2 matches.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. I agreed. And I think the energy on the court, too, and how we spent a lot of time trying to just tighten up our defensive systems in particular, how we're coordinating front court, back court, how we're tactically executing. It's really easy as a coach to say, hey, go do this, and then to have that happen. You have to train execution. So that was really a big area of focus for us. And we're seeing that now. And, of course, the teams have been out of system a lot and making it a little bit easier on us. We'll be tested a little bit more moving forward.
Yeah, definitely tomorrow against Cuba is one that we've circled on our calendar.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have in terms of this tournament and just the quality teams in NORCECA. I mean, you're really talking about Cuba and Canada right now and being able to really test anybody in the world. Yeah.
So when we ask players, we've asked a lot of the players already in this tournament, especially like Canada, Cuba, and Mexico, who will play Olympic qualifiers in a couple weeks. The players have been doing their media discipline research and have been saying that they are focusing on 1 match at a time here at NORCECA's.
Yes.
However, you, from a coaching perspective, you have to have 7 matches in 9 days in the back of your head coming up in a couple weeks.
It's not in the back.
Okay, thank you for being honest about that.
Yeah.
So can you, and if so, how do you use a tournament like this where you will play 5, hopefully, matches in 6 days to prepare for a tournament like that coming up?
It's an opportunity to see how guys are feeling when they have to do that, when they have that level of volume. How does performance ebb and flow? How do you use your bench under those conditions? We're really in an advantageous position, particularly in the middle blocker spot.
My goodness, you sure are.
We really
just
can
talked about that with
pretty
Micah.
much flip back and forth.
You have 4 starters.
Yes, that's correct. And I really feel that with Thomas Jeschke's improved level of play over not just this summer, but over the course of the last couple years, and there he is as he's walking by on cue. But I feel like he's really helped us tremendously in terms of being able to have another starter outside too. And Garrett Mwanga-Tatia has played the off-the-bench role for us so well over the last number of years that I feel like we've got a nice set of 4 outsides as well. So that does give us some good optimism going to the Olympic qualifiers. Certainly some optimism if we need to make moves here, we can do it. But, yeah, that's definitely something I'm thinking about quite a bit.
How much of your job at this point is just managing? Because we talked to you before VNL in Ottawa, and you're like, I've been coaching Matt Anderson for 10 years, for a decade. Same thing with most of these guys have been in this program for so long. You're one of the oldest teams in the world. You're not that old, but
I thought you were about to say I'm one of the oldest coaches in the world.
No. Definitely one of the better looking coaches in the world. That's for sure.
You're making a comeback.
Yeah.
It's safe.
But as the roster, the youngest guys in your roster is 25, which is unheard of on basically any other roster around the world.
Right.
So how much is just managing those little things day to day?
It's an interesting question we could probably talk about for quite some time because
let's
think
get into it.
Yeah, sure. I think there's quite a bit that I feel has changed over the years. If you're talking about the decade, really the development of someone like Micah Christensen, really who came in from SC, as you were talking about, as a sophomore in college, and I've been with him the whole time. And now he's playing at the highest level in the world and has so much experience. I coach him very differently than I did 10 years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
And how much latitude do you give them? I mean, you could go down to how you train every day on a daily basis, what those practices look like, what does a leadership model look like, how has that changed, how does my communication, how has that changed? It's intentionally being much more collaborative, giving them a voice, still needing to make the decisions, having conversations about what that's like and what that means. There's a lot of adaptation that's needed to occur over the course of the last, and even this summer. I really feel like this summer, I felt it quite strongly more this summer than in the past about me needing to adapt and change. Because I feel like if I don't, then you're going to have problems. You now have a veteran team. So how do I need to do things differently? And that really goes down to even in practice plan design over the last month. I mean, I really like to train. I feel like it's one of the things that, as a head coach, you give up some things and then you continue to do some things that are you. And a lot of coaches, when they get to the head coaching level and they've been doing this for a long time and the administrative load increases and there's just more responsibilities in general, the practice plan design really becomes the role of an assistant coach. That happens in quite a number of programs. That's not in this program. So for me, even this last train block, I was like, okay, I'm getting a gut feel that how we are training this group has changed even yet again. Because I talked about that
summer.
During the last couple of weeks. Just because, again, it's a veteran group, and I have some opinions about how you need to train and lift and what the priorities are with a veteran group. But even more, okay, we need to continue to grow here in terms of how we work with this group.
Wow. It's funny that you talk about that progression over the past 10 years, because we were just talking with Micah about the evolution of the setting and especially of the middle routes that you guys are running now.
Yes.
And how before it was just like, the front, back, and the gap that you were running with the middle.
Right.
And now each individual middle has different routes that they're running for different situations with different footworks and different drift patterns.
Yes.
You've added so many layers especially in that one particular issue over the past decade.
Absolutely. I think if you look over the last 20, maybe even plus years, the biggest offensive adaptation is really just the inclusion of the BIC at such a high level. And then I think if you look at the last 5 years, maybe a little bit more too, is really all of a sudden you have these drift patterns. And what does that mean? And they're very, very technical. And so we spent a lot of time over the last quad implementing those systems. And those work for some and not for others, and they are really complex in terms of how you teach them. And not only how you teach it, but how that gets integrated with the larger offensive system. And so I think what Mike is doing is trying to figure out what's the strength and weaknesses of each individual player, and then how do you use that within the system. And that's very few people can do that, but Micah can.
That's some best setter in the world stuff.
Right, that's right.
It really is. So there's a guy I want to ask you about that we talked to last night, and that's Tim McIntosh.
Yes.
I want to hear, so I've known Tim a couple years now. I saw him, he kind of used the VLA as a jumping off point towards your gym, really, when he was playing for the Northeast Force. I had never heard of the kid, as I don't think a lot of people had.
Right.
I saw him play once, and I was blown away.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked his way into your gym. He worked his way onto a Senior A roster. Tell me your story and your relationship with Tim McIntosh the last year or two.
It's been longer than a year or two, because it started with emails. Coach, can I get a shot? Can I get a shot? And some communication, and he was working it. And so we gave him an opportunity to come in the gym and get a look at him. And obviously what you see is his athleticism.
Oh, yeah.
Just his speed and ability to cover ground and get to the corners and make a move forward, which is hard. And so he has strength and speed. And we don't talk about speed, I don't think, nearly enough in this sport. So he's got it. And so then he had some opportunities. You got to get a little lucky, too, when you're a libero,
Sure
getting
do.
a job overseas and having an opportunity to grow and develop. And he got that, and now he's here making the most of it.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been a blast getting to watch him play, and I think it's a testament that even in this match you're using Shoji in service, even him in defense,
Right.
because he made some fantastic plays last night. He was all over the floor.
That's right. And tonight he didn't get as many opportunities, particularly in that second set. We had a lot of service errors.
Yep.
And every time he ran off, I was like, darn, the service error now. Now it's like Timmy doesn't get a shot to get a dig, So it was something that we haven't done very much of, flipping.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen a United States team really do that.
Yeah.
But it can work, especially if like you and I were talking about before the match, there is a pitch count sort of aspect to this tournament that might apply to liberos. I don't know.
Well, we talked about that. That's exactly right. And so, but I think there's also, you're really trying to just squeeze every little point out of this tournament and certainly the next. And as I'm strategizing mentally about like, okay, how am I going to do that? In that moment, you get to the end of that tournament. 1 point really does matter in that round robin.
Mm-hmm.
And can you just get a little bit better? And so that's something that I needed to see.
Yep.
So I really wanted to bring Tim this week. I really wanted to do the flip just so I can see it and get a really, I mentioned gut feel. I get a gut feel for that too. And I felt good about it tonight. I know it's different for Eric too. So
it is, good point.
But you got to be, and Eric it's all about the team
Mm-hmm.
and just how we're really like bringing everybody's strength to bear for the good of the team.
I think the last question I have is about it's a decently big question. It's something that Everett and I talk about a lot on our show and just about kind of volleyball in general. The difference and the balance between coaches and teams and everybody focusing on process versus focusing on results.
Mm-hmm.
And where are your processes? Where are they becoming results? How do you control as best you can? How do you can enforce those processes becoming results? And I something that I was saying as we were talking about the United States women dropping the NORCECA final over the weekend is that I said that winning is a skill, and I think that winning is a skill that needs practice. Is that something that you agree with at all? And like, do you think there's value in simply winning a tournament such as this, or is it all the process steps that takes you to winning a tournament that's really the value?
Well, I think both. You just said, is there value in winning? And I think there is. When we won the World Cup in 2015, one of my good friends is Eric Sullivan at Texas. We go way back, roommates in the dorms back at UCLA. And he called me and he said he always felt like you needed to be on the podium during the quad, so you felt like you could get on the podium at the end at the Olympics. And so I think I've always remembered that. And so I think there is value in winning. And what winning does is validate that process. And to your initial question, which was, is winning a skill? And I think it is. And I feel quite strongly that it is something that you can teach. And it is a process. It is a mental process. It is a thought process. It is a whole line of training that goes into what we call performance psychology or the mental side of the game. There's lots of different ways you talk about it. But I think that there is a number of aspects of that skill set that can be worked on with every individual player. And I think for me, philosophically, over the years, that's been something of real emphasis. I started thinking even back in 2006 and 2007, you have the most talented teams in the world, and their physicality usually gets them into that top 5 or in the world these days, the top 10. I mean, there's so many good volleyball teams.
But then what pushes them to that next
What makes
level?
the difference at the
exactly.
And certainly there's some physical aspects of it. In our game, somebody can go back and rip a few serves, and that can be the difference. But there is the thing that you can control, as we're talking about process and the mental side of the game and the vernacular around that. There is that aspect of you can control your response to those situations, what you say to yourself, how you handle those moments. And there's, like I said, there's a lot of different things that we talk about as a team and emphasize, particularly down the stretch.
So where, like, for you guys specifically, you just lost the VNL finals. And how do you look at that loss? And, where on the meter does it stand? Like, was that something that lacked in our process, or was that just a one-game scenario where we lost to a team that was slightly better than us on that day? Is that something where, in my personal thought, it's the latter. It's Poland was Poland that day
in
Poland, and that's a tough situation. And you know what? Maybe 5 out of 10 times it goes the other way for you guys. Yeah. Or was there certain things that you guys looked at your process and you're like, maybe this isn't working?
Well, I think I view it as such a learning opportunity. I was pretty disappointed that we didn't play better. We've been now in the VNL finals a couple times, our third silver, and so I was pretty ready to win that thing, and I was excited about the opportunity, about having the chance to beat Poland in Poland. I mean, how?
Yeah, that's the pinnacle right there.
Rare.
Yeah, I was ready.
Yeah.
I think as we looked at it, really there were other things other than maybe the mental side of the game that we looked at. I don't think the mental side of the game was something that really jumped out at us. It was about some execution, how
some
you
matchup stuff.
they're really, subs here and there. I think there was some execution jumped out more to me than looking at it and saying, hey, we weren't ready or we didn't handle the pressure very well. That didn't jump out to me. And even when it does, sometimes it can be collective, but also sometimes it can be an individual here or there that needs a little touch-up on some of those processes. And certainly that is an ongoing conversation with all of our athletes.
It's just it never stops day to day, even after 10 years, Coach?
No. In some respects, too, I think as we get to talking about the mental side of the game, the pressures and how you handle this moment don't get easier as they get older.
No, that's a great point.
And it really is. The pressures mount, the scrutiny mounts, the money mounts, the limited time, and you have a little more thought of mortality here. Like you only have so much time here. So sometimes the depth increases. Like if you look at guys like Taylor Averill, Thomas Jeschke, which we mentioned earlier, these guys continue to get better and better.
This man here who just refuses to age and seems to get better at 38 years old.
David Smith, I know. So you have more and more talent that's developing, and how do they come back and integrate to the team? There is new challenges every year, and those challenges change, even though you've been working with guys for such a long time.
Awesome. Well, Coach, really appreciate you coming to chat with us. Congratulations on a fantastic win tonight.
And thank you. Excited about tomorrow.
Yeah,
we are too.
Yeah,
we are too.
Appreciate everyone being there, and hi to my family at home, and we will see everybody tomorrow.
Yeah,
Thanks,
7:30 Eastern time.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Coach.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.